Hello, this is Erin with the Joy in Pens and Paper, and it is time to do a pen and ink review for the month of September in 2024. So I have right here the pens that I inked up at the beginning of the month, as well as the ink that they are inked up with. And then over here, I'm going to have my kind of thoughts and my scoring. So I did do just a little tweak this week, and I've left the scoring open, but my thoughts are all pre-planned, and I'm going to fill in the scoring as I go. So first up this week was the Benu Euphoria. Yep, Benu Euphoria, and this is a Goulet Pens exclusive, and it's the iced caramel latte, which is just absolutely stunning. Stunning. Now this comes with an iridium tipped nib. It's a fine nib, and I have kind of learned in my exploration I really like iridium tipped nibs. They're a lot of fun to write with. So the other thing that I realized when writing with this pen, two things. One, the inks that I have been using in this pen have tended to be a little bit dry. So my writing experience has been met with some skipping. And this month I used a Sailor ink, and it was wonderfully lubricated for this pen. So that was awesome. Now, because I didn't have to really focus on the ink piece, I realized that this is a very slicey nib, and I have heard other YouTubers talk about nibs being slicey. I didn't quite understand until now. um, so I really enjoyed this pen, really enjoyed this combination. The Sailor Mizutama is this beautiful caramelly golden-ish brown. It's just really lovely, and just the writing has some really nice shading to it. It goes from really dark, almost black, to really light, almost tan. So I really enjoyed that a lot. Now this pen, let's see how much ink is left in it. It has a little bit less than half of the ink left in it. And today is the 24th of September, so I likely will be able to finish that up with a couple more journal entries. So the pen I'm going to give a 9. The ink I'm going to give a 10, and the combination I'm going to give a 10. That was a really lovely combination. Now next up is my steady pen. This is the Pelikan M400 in white tortoiseshell. This is a lovely, I believe this is a pocket-sized pen. It's very petite, it's very lightweight, and it's very beautiful. Beautiful. This was the first really expensive pen that I added to my collection. It was a Christmas gift from my husband a few years ago. And I think I've had it inked up all but 1 month, and that 1 month I missed it. So I just make sure to have this inked up. This month I put in Sailor Manyo Shirakashi, and the Sailor Manyo Shirakashi is a really complex ink. It's a kind of forest green as a base color, but then it has a little bit of a reddish tint to it. It has a little bit of an olive green tint to it, and it's just so beautiful. The only downside with Sailor inks in general is they tend to have a little bit of a chemical-y smell, but that's fine. Now this one, it's tough to see because the barrel is only partially translucent, but I think the ink level is somewhere up here. I did not use this as much this month as I typically use this pen, and I don't think that that's because of the ink. I think it's because I was just really enjoying some of the other inks or other pen and ink combinations so much that this one kind of sat. So it might be a carryover for next month. I might, because I have a whole bottle of the Shirakashi. I hate wasting ink, but I also have too much of it. I might dump and refill with another. I'm still trying to figure that out. So no surprise, I'm going to give this pen a 10. I have not found anything wrong with it so far. The ink is going to get a 10 and the combination is going to get a 10. I've not found an ink that I don't like in this pen, so there's that. Okay, next up is the Lebon Forest, and this has an extra fine nib. Oh, and the Pelikan also has an extra fine, but that is a German extra fine, and this is a Japan extra. No, this is a German extra fine as well. So you can just see the difference. I have found Pelikans to be a little bit juicier. So the Lebon Forest, this is a newer pen to my collection that I got on what seemed to be a super sale. This is a pen that usually retails for $160, and I got it for $72 or $74, which couldn't pass it up. If I were to have gotten this pen without being on sale, I probably would not have gotten the green, the forest body. This particular colorway was the one that was on sale. However, now that I have it, I love it. So there's that. This is also inked up with a Sailor ink. I joined Amanda B in doing Sailor September. And so my pens either have a Sailor ink or they are a Sailor pen. It's all a Sailor theme. So this is Sailor Yurameku Suki Gokuro, and this was a sample that I received from Ink Journal. This is another, Sailor just tends to have really complex inks, so this is another one. It's a similar base color to Shirakashi. It's got that red coloring as well, a little bit more pronounced. I should say a lot of it more pronounced. But the really interesting thing is that when you start writing with it, it is a different color than how it dries. It's almost a teal leaning color, and then it dries darker with that red sheen to it. This one I did refill. So when I talked about not getting through the Shirakashi as quickly as I typically do, part of it is this guy's fault. I did refill this one. I am using it in my 5-year, and typically the pen that I use in my 5-year, I maybe do one journaling spread with it throughout the month so that the ink can all go towards a 5-year. But this one I really wanted to keep coming back to in my journaling. So I did refill it. Yes, and this also has a really nice feel, the nib against the paper. So the pen is a 10, the ink is a 10, and the combination is a 10. So I really liked that one. Now next up, this one, probably my most confusing. So this is the Waterman Carene, and this is in the amber color. It has a fine nib, and it's an inlaid nib. So talk about being a classy pen. This one is. So this I inked up with Sailor Yurameku Hana Gokuro, and I think I remember commenting about this in my currently inked video. If I didn't comment on it, I definitely thought it, that the color that was coming out here was not the color that I swatched in my swatch book. And I just was very confused, and I wondered if it was watered down from when I rinsed this pen. I also wondered if the ink had gone bad. And what was really fascinating is as the month went on, it darkened up. So this is how it ended. And I just did this little swatch right here, but those are two very different colors. And with it darkening up, it started to show the shifting properties that the Yurameku inks have. So this is another one that goes down a little bit different than how it dries, and it also has kind of a pinky, almost red leaning sheen to it. So yeah, that was just a journey that I went on with this pen. Now, because of that, I am going to have a little questionable scoring with it. So the pen, I love this pen. I think the only thing I don't love about it is that it doesn't post wonderfully, and sometimes because of how nice this is, I don't want it sitting on all surfaces, so I'd like to be able to post it. I guess that's a personal preference, not really, I shouldn't really hold that against the pen, but I am. The ink, I'm going to give it a 7. And the combination, I'll put it right in between those two and give it an 8. I remember when I initially got this ink thinking this would be the one that I would want a bottle of, but based on this experience, I'm not sure that I agree with that anymore, but we shall have to see. All right, next up is my oldest pen in my collection. This is the Pilot Vanishing Point in the white and black. I call it the Stormtrooper Vanishing Point, and I believe I got that name from Brian at Goulet Pens. That's not an original thought, but I think I got it from Brian. I did recently go to a pen show, and I saw a brand new one of these, which just shows or kind of reinforced for me how well loved this one is. You can see it's got the wearing on the click, the button back here. It has some wearing here. It has a little ding right here. It's just very well loved. Some wearing right here on these rings. I was very surprised at how little I reached for this pen this month. I thought that this was going to be a pen that ended up in my work planner, which this year I'm just using black or gray inks in. So I would have put money on the fact that it was going to go in there. It did not. And because I was really loving the exploration of the Sailor Mizutama and the Suki Gokuro and trying to figure out what was going on with the Hana Gokuro, I just didn't really use this a whole lot. Having said that, I do really love this pen. I am going to give it a 9 just because when I think about the weight, the feel, and everything else, I think for me the Pelikan M400 and the Lebon Forest are a little bit more enjoyable at this point. The ink, I'm also going to give that, an 8. You can see it here, and I could see it in my journaling. There's some feathering with this ink. So, and I remember that when I first swatched it thinking, gosh, this is a really wet ink. And then the combination, I'm going to give that a 9. It's a nice combination. I just didn't reach for it a whole lot. Now then I've got my, this is the pen that I got for my birthday this year, the Sailor Pro Gear White and Paint Gold with a fine nib. So I previously had a medium fine Sailor nib, and goodness gracious, this is finer. This is very fine. Almost too fine, but the 21 karat nib does have a little bit of give to it, so you can get a little bit more juiciness in your writing if you just the teeniest little bit of pressure. Now I realized as I was getting this set up, this was another pen that I did re-ink. So like I said, I would have put money on the fact that I would have pulled the Pilot Vanishing Point into my work planner. I didn't. I wanted to keep using this as my everyday pen because it was so enjoyable. But I realized that I refilled it with the wrong ink. So I started off with Blast Furnace, and I can see the bottle that I refilled it with right here. I refilled it with Burnt Walnut. So it's a little bit of a slightly browner color. But I did really enjoy this ink or this pen. So I'm just going to do a little swatch right here. So it's not the biggest difference between the two, but they are different. So the pen, I'm going to give a 10, the ink a 10, and I guess a 10, since I used two different inks, and the combination a 10. I find that when I'm using a nib that is this fine, these are the pens that I want to keep with me as much as possible because I'm able to write on all different kinds of paper with it. So typically, if you're in the workplace, you might be given a piece of copier paper, which is fine. I'm not trying to be snooty, but copier paper is much more absorbent, and this is not going to have as big of a mess as it would on that paper if you were using, say, a medium or a bold nib or even a stub nib, which is likely going to feather right on out. So I really enjoyed having that pen. I also do have a Leuchtturm that I have at work just for kind of rapid logging and drafting out different things. So if I'm looking at making a data sheet for a student, I work in public school as a behavior specialist. So I've got to put together at times some paper data collection. I will often draw it out just to see how do I want it to look before I start building out the table on a Google Doc or Google Sheet. So there's that. Now, I mentioned I went to a pen show, so this is my newest pen. This is one that I do have a little bucket list of pens. This was on that bucket list. So it is the Model J in violet with a journaler nib. This pen with the nib combination would retail for, I think it was $355, if I remember correctly. And I got it for $250. So I didn't necessarily expect that, but I'm also not surprised that if you're seeing vendors at a live pen show, they likely will give you a slightly lower price than if you're buying it online. So that was a really pleasant surprise. I inked this up initially with, excuse me, Ferris Wheel Press Madame Mulberry, and I just, that ink is too dry. The ink is too dry. It's a great color match, but it doesn't necessarily shade. It's like the top of the letters are not legible, and then I'm finding I'm having to go over them, and then I'm not really getting to enjoy a journaler nib. So I am looking forward to wrapping up this month and switching out the ink in this pen and really taking it for a test drive. So far, I mean, I'm going to give the pen a 10 because it's a good size, it's a good weight, it's a good feel, it's beautiful. The ink, I'm going to give that a 5. I really don't like it right now. I'm really not a fan. And the combination, I'm going to give that a 6. This is not a do again unless I were to add some white lightning, which is why I'm giving it a 6 because there's a little bit of hope. But yeah, I just, it's too dry. But I thought it would be okay because the journaler nib is based off of a medium nib. So, or it's a medium nib with a journaler grind is how I should say it. So I thought a drier ink would be okay because it's a wetter flow anyway, but I don't like it. Not a fan. So that is my pen and ink review for the month of September of 2024. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.